Hello, YouTube. This is Mike, and today I want to be talking to you about one of the biggest obstacles that every single victim of BPD and NPD abuse experiences. One of the biggest obstacles, maybe the biggest obstacle. Before we get into that, I want you to read this thumbnail I've got here about trauma bonds, intermittent reinforcement recovery. First one is taking responsibility is not victim blaming. That is really important. Number two, trauma bonds are real but are actually formed in childhood. Number three, attraction to narcissists or borderlines is heightened by unresolved childhood abuse trauma. Number four, the first step to breaking the bond, because there is a real trauma bond that goes on in your brain neurologically. The first step is complete no contact. And for those of you who keep asking me questions about why does the borderline do this and why does the number five here helps us understand that awareness of the abuser's true nature only comes with distance and time, which is why I don't answer many of your questions. And yes, Happy New Year to everybody, in case I didn't say that. So I've got a lot of time in my hands. I'm bored. So you guys get to be the beneficiary of my free time. All right. So let's talk about that. To do that, I want to go to comments. Again, I love comments because if people leave a comment that I want to respond to, it means that, okay, wait, I don't want to hear, sorry, I'm looking for the comment. It means that this is something that other people are thinking and feeling, and it is something worth discussing. So bear in mind, if you leave a comment on my channel, you're doing so in front of the whole world. So I'm not outing you by looking at your comment and responding to it. So also bear in mind that if you leave a comment, if you do anything other than ask me an honest question, if you do anything other than that, you run the risk of me psychoanalyzing you. And I do that because it's really important. The thing that's most important to me, not only in my life but in in this process, is being aware of what is going on the unconscious level, and that will be exposed by your communication. Every time you communicate, you are revealing things that are going on in your unconscious all the time. And to be aware of what's going on in your unconscious will give you power to change behaviors and actions and responses within yourself. So bear in mind, even though all human beings react almost identically to similar scenarios, every single life choice, every single viewpoint that you have about the world is a choice. As an infant, as a child, you ran into some kinds of challenges associated with getting your needs met, getting loved, maybe even physical survival. You made choices to react to the world in certain ways based on your perceived understanding of what you needed to do to survive. Those choices then become patterns that get rigidly placed into your unconscious, and they become neural responses. They become, this is why, trying to help a borderline understand that their unrealistic response negative to you, their misinterpretation of you, it doesn't matter how many times you tell them that, or even how many times they realize, oh, in this moment I was wrong. It doesn't change the neural pathways, because as an infant they made choices, and everybody would in those same circumstances. But they were still choices that were made on how I'm going to view the world, how I'm going to respond to people, how I'm going to choose to interpret blanketly how the world is. And we all do it. And victims of BPD and NPD abuse are no different. And so that first thing that I say here is the most important. Taking responsibility is not victim blaming. So if I point out to you that you're not a victim, if your response is to feel defensive about your victimhood, that tells me and it tells you that you made a choice somewhere in childhood. You made a choice that being a victim was going to help you. You probably saw your parents do it. They responded as a victim towards life, and you felt the need to take care of them, and so you learned that that's how you survive. You survive by identifying as a victim and by voicing that to the world. And so you're saying, don't treat me equally. Don't treat me the way you would treat anybody else. I'm a victim. A victim is somebody who has no power. So if you respond to me saying to you, you're not a victim, even though you've been victimized, if I say to you, you're not a victim, and your response is to feel defensive about that, it means that you want to be powerless. You want to have no power to change your life. You do not want to stop being a victim. And that's because somewhere you learned that if you did that, you got some kind of positive reinforcement, or you saw somebody else act that way. And you decided if they're doing it, then I'm going to do it also. Because think about it. When I tell you you're not a victim, what I mean by that is that you have the power to heal. You have the power to change. Why would somebody get defensive about that? It's not rational. I'm saying to you, you no longer need to be powerless in life. For somebody to respond defensively to that isn't rational, because they're saying, I don't want power. I want to stay powerless. Stop telling me that I can stop being in pain. Stop trying to help me. I don't want help. I want you to co-sign my victimhood. I want you to empathize with me and to come down and commiserate with me and stay in it with me, but I don't want you to help me out of it. That's what you're saying. So let me go straight to some comments, because as I said, comments I find are very helpful. And so this is a comment from somebody who I believe is being sincere in their attempts, but they don't realize how actually destructive their communication is. They also don't realize how aggressive and abusive they are being. Now, if you look at it on the surface, you're going to go, there's nothing abusive. This person is full of compassion. But I'm going to reveal to you that this person, unknowingly to themselves, is actually full of rage and is being abusive towards me. Now, being that I'm not a victim, I don't feel victimized by it. But obviously, based on the thumbs up, a lot of people agree with her, which doesn't surprise me also. So, let's just get into it. So this is in response to my video, Loving a Borderline Stuck in a Victim Loop, Why You Can't Escape the Grip of the blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure at some point I said something about not being a victim. But remember what I said here. Trauma bonds. Taking responsibility is not victim blaming. So if I'm acknowledging that there's this thing called trauma bonds, I'm acknowledging that people who've been in these relationships have been severely abused. I'm also acknowledging that there is a real chemical bond that happens where you your brain and all of the chemicals in your brain make you addicted to the abusive scenario. And as well as all of your programming as a child will keep you trapped in a loop, a victim loop. So I am acknowledging that any normal human, if they get trapped in trauma bonds, it's going to be difficult, if not virtually impossible, for them to choose to walk away. And at the same time, I am saying you're not a victim. So one of the things that happens with everybody on the spectrum of codependence, which includes people with NPD, people with BPD, people who do not have a personality disorder but take on the role of the codependent, they all suffer along this spectrum. I am acknowledging that. For somebody to not hear that in what I say means that they are trapped in their codependent victim mentality. And a victim mentality will always see things as black and white. You know this with your borderline. They only see things in black and white. They can't see anything in the middle. So it also shows the selectiveness of the mindset of somebody trapped in this. When I simultaneously say to you, you have been victimized, you are trapped in a bond of trauma, and simultaneously I say, but you choose to be there and you are not a victim. For somebody to only focus on half of that statement, which is that you've chosen to be there, you continue to choose to be there, and you're not a victim, it shows that they are still traumatized, that they still operate from a trauma bond. Because you have that black and white thinking. They can't hear this and that. They can only focus on one. So they focus on the one that they relate to the most, which is they want to stay a victim. So when I say there is a thing called trauma bonds, that there is a chemical addiction that happens that keeps you there, that your addiction to the trauma bond came from childhood abuse. Even though I say all of that, they're nodding their head until the moment I say, but you are not a victim. The moment I say that, they've forgotten everything else that I've just said. And they only focus on the one thing that they can't tolerate hearing, which is that they're not a victim. So before I get into the comment and go a little further, let me say something else. The biggest obstacle, now that I'm going to respond to the title of the video, the biggest obstacle to healing from NPD or BPD abuse for the codependent, the biggest obstacle is getting over their perfectionism. The reason why people can't tolerate even being told that they're a codependent is because in their mind, being a codependent means that they're not perfect. So where does codependence come from? And this is true for narcissists, borderlines, and non-personality disordered people, or neurotypicals as they're called. As a child, you were not told that you had value simply because you existed. A healthy child is told when they're an infant, either by the response of the parents. The parents reward the infant every time the infant has an experience. The infant is cold, the infant is tired, the infant needs to go to the bathroom, the infant needs to burp, the infant is angry, sad, happy, crying, giggling, whatever the experience of the infant is, the parent responds with a reward. And the message that the infant gets is, I have value simply because I exist and I have feelings, both physical and emotional. Every experience I have, I'm being rewarded for, which means that I exist and I have value. For the borderline and the narcissist, the complete lack of response to their experiences is so severe that they end up having no identity. They don't have an identity. They don't know who they are. That's why they dissociate. One of the reasons why they dissociate, why they don't identify with the things that they say that and do, why they can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality, is because of that. For the codependent, they got just enough response that they have an identity. They don't dissociate. They don't like reality, but they see it and they acknowledge it. But they are still operating from the programming that they have been told, either outrightly or through response or energetically, they have been told that their value comes from what they do for others, not for who they are. So the codependent who doesn't have a personality disorder develops this desire to be validated based on their perfection. And their perfection is in meeting other people's needs. And they don't meet other people's needs because they're truly empaths or they truly care. It's 100% selfish. They meet other people's needs solely to get acknowledgement and validation. And that is why you love borderlines, because borderlines have no ability to objectively reward you for existing. Borderlines are infants and they demand that you take care of all of their needs all of the time. And so that makes the codependent feel valuable because they constantly have to do something in order to get validation. It doesn't work, which creates the trauma bond. The trauma bond is that I desperately need for you to see that I am perfectly loving you. And the fact that you don't see that makes me want to prove it to you even more. And it creates this trauma bond. And the trauma bond is, if I don't prove to you how perfect I am at loving you, I won't exist. So as long as I'm chasing after that, at least I'm not satisfied, I'm not happy, but at least I'm in that craziness of trying to prove somebody my worth and my value. That's why you go back. You can't help that. You are a victim of your programming. Having said that, you do have the power to change what you do. You do have power over your actions, as painful and frightening as they are. It feels like you don't, but you do. So trauma bonds, the taking responsibility, is not victim blaming. So when I tell you that you are not a victim, that you choose to be in these relationships, I am empowering you. I am reminding you that that was a choice that you made. It was a virtually inescapable choice for an infant, for a toddler. It's a virtually inescapable, logical choice to make in order to survive, but it was still a choice. You chose to do it. And until you have the ability to go back and own that choice and realize you have the power, as difficult as it is, to make different choices, until you realize that, you will never escape that victim mentality. And so when I tell you you're not a victim, if your first response is to be defensive against that, it means that you are once again choosing to indulge in that response instead of choosing to indulge in a different, frightening, unfamiliar response, which is, no, this is my choice. I'm going to choose something different. I'm going to choose to fight against my neural programming. Because the easiest thing to do is to do nothing. If you do nothing, you will just respond as you always have. You will seek out abuse, and then you will respond to that abuse the same way you always have. You can just let your neural pathways do all the work for you. choosing not to be a victim will take tremendous work. It may take, everything that you have in you, but you can do it. So whenever I tell you you're not a victim, I am telling you you have power. And so when you want to fight with me on that and you want to say that I'm victim blaming you, you want to hold on to the right to not have any power. And you have the right to be a victim if that's what you want. But I'm giving you new information that maybe you don't have within you. So, having said that, let's now get to the comment. So this person says, and by the way, before we go any further, a very codependent thing to do is to never acknowledge your own vulnerability or talk about yourself. So what you do when you want to talk about yourself, you create a mythical third person and you talk about them, what they do, what they feel. So this, from the get-go, this person is being very codependent, which is, I'm going to defend myself from being imperfect. So I won't insert myself into this. I will talk about some mythical third person, and I will defend some mythical third person, which is really their own projection of themselves. Again, a very codependent thing to do. It's passive aggressive and it's abusive. So from the get-go, you don't know that because I haven't read it to you yet, but from the get-go, this person comes across very reasonable. They come across very neutral, but in reality, they are abusing me. They are putting me in a category. They're putting me on the defensive and they're judging me. So that is a very codependent thing to do. And it's very, to be honest, from the get-go, when I read it, I feel the abuse. And I feel, what is happening. And it makes me want to argue with the person. It doesn't make me want to connect with them. That's why I say to you guys, share your honest feelings. Because if you share your feelings, I can't judge you for your feeling. I won't lie to you. I still may psychoanalyze you. But I can't judge you for a feeling. But this person wants to judge me for my intent. But they're going to act as though that they aren't. So I'm going to be brutally ruthless with them because this is what I would do with myself. Bear in mind, the ruthlessness that I bring to you is the ruthlessness that I strive to bring to myself, and that is one of the main reasons that I have healed from that destructive relationship. So that's why I won't, I'm not going to condescend to any of you. I'm not going to come down to whatever level you may want me to come down at and treat you as a victim, a powerless victim. I won't do it. And it's okay with me if you don't like it. It's okay with me if it infuriates you, hurts your feelings. I'm okay with that. It's not my intention to make you feel that way, but if that's how you respond to me giving you the tools to empower yourself, that's on you. And you can choose to do something differently. And it's also okay to have whatever feelings you have. I want to have the right to have every feeling I have. And if that's true about me, then I have to make that true about you. If you are furious with me, if you're angry with me, if you feel victimized and abused by me, those are feelings and you can have them. It doesn't mean that it's true. And it doesn't mean that I have to be forced to interact with you the way you want me to. Got me? All right. So here we go. This person says, a person, not her, a person who ends up with a BPD may not be their victim, but they likely have been a victim of abuse. Now, how does this person not know that I have said that? I say that in every video. I say that in order to become a person who chases after a borderline, you were neglected and abused as a child. How could you not hear that? The way that you not hear that is if you yourself have dualistic thinking. You have selective hearing. When I tell you that part, you hear it until I say, but you're not a victim. At that moment, you forget everything that I just said, and you only focus on the one thing you can't tolerate hearing, which is that you're not a victim. But you forget that I've said the reason why you're like this is because as a child you were neglected and abused. So how this person is condescending to educate me on something I've already said shows me that they have dualistic thinking. They already have a sore spot and can't tolerate the idea of not being a victim. And instead of saying, I don't like the way you make me feel when you say that, they say, another person, a mythical person could respond this way. And then she's sort of lining up with me, condescending, talking down to me, and trying to make me feel bad. Oh my God, I made somebody feel bad? Oh no. So this is her projection of herself. Whether she's aware of it or not, I don't know. So she says, a person who ends up with a BPD may not be their victim, but they likely have been a victim of abuse, same as the person with BPD. Codependents who have not had therapy may find shaming statements more traumatic than beneficial. Yeah, and so you're saying somebody who is unconscious, they haven't had therapy. So they're unconsciously acting out their trauma bonds and their victimhood. They are going to see things in a black and white way, and they're going to misinterpret what I say. And so because they may inaccurately find my empowering statements as being shaming, what am I supposed to do with that? Am I supposed to change? So that whole thing, let's read the whole thing. It is designed to make me feel guilty. It is designed to make me bad and wrong. Because bear in mind again, what is the main thing that codependents want more than anything? They want to be perfect. They want to be seen as being perfect. So she again is projecting onto me what would work to her. So one way you can get to her is to make her feel imperfect or wrong. She will respond to that, and she will codependently seek to ameliorate somebody's feelings, even if they are misinterpreting from their own, mental issues, what she's doing. So now I know this person goes out of their way to tell people what they need to hear in order to be seen as being perfect. And so she's going to project that onto me and say, you're not being perfect here. You're bad, you're wrong, you're shaming these people who are in pain and they can't help it. That's what's underneath what I'm going to read to you again. She says, a person who ends up with a BPD may not be their victim, but they likely have been a victim of abuse, same as the person with BPD. Codependents who have not had therapy may find shaming statements more traumatic than beneficial. So she doesn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. She, in all of that, what she really says is, you're shaming me. Again, she's projecting onto some, mythical third person. But she's using the word shaming is a guilt-inducing word. It is meant to put me in a state of either being defensive or feel bad. So she's actually shaming me. Again, this is projection. She's saying that I'm shaming people. And I know that I haven't shamed anybody. I know that when I tell you, sometimes ruthlessly, you're not a victim. I'll even say, stop bullshitting me. I don't buy into it. I don't believe you. You're not a victim. I don't do that to shame you. I do that to snap you out of it. I know it's not going to work the majority of the time, but for somebody, it may shock them out of their neural pathways long enough to see the reality of what's going on with them. So I respond and I say, are you accusing me of making shaming statements? Because that's a very abusive thing to say. To accuse me of shaming people. She's calling me abusive. She's calling me an abuser. That's an abusive thing to say. She doesn't say in that she says they may find shaming statements more traumatic than beneficial. She's not saying, she's not trying to help me understand that what you're saying might be interpreted as being shaming. She's calling me, she is calling my statements shaming, just right off the bat. This is a very codependent thing to do. You lay down the groundwork with sugar, you make the person feel safe, and then underneath it bring in this accusation. And it creates a trauma bond, because on one hand you feel good that somebody said these nice things to you, but then they just threw this thing in and it makes you confused. And that is a codependent strategy. More than likely how she was treated as a kid. So I say, are you accusing me of making shaming statements? And then I say, be specific. What exactly did I say that was shaming? And that's an honest question. You know, that's a huge accusation. You're going to accuse me of shaming people. Tell me exactly what I said. Tell me exactly what it was that was shaming. She doesn't have a response to that, which obviously means, again, this is her feeling. But I'm not even, and it doesn't mean that even if she finds a statement to be shaming, it doesn't mean that it is. She may see it that way, but that's what discussion is about. Tell me, and this, I would say this in a relationship. If somebody said that, I would say, tell me what I said. I want to know. And if they repeat what I said, because I'm not perfect, and if somebody repeats back something I said and I am able to see it, I'll acknowledge it and I'll go, you're right. That was an abusive thing to say, and my apologies, you didn't deserve that. Here's what I meant to say. So I gave her an opportunity to show me exactly what I said, so that if she was right, I could acknowledge it. Or if she was coming from her projections, I could point that out to her. So she doesn't. She responds and she says, what you are saying could be interpreted that way. Well, of course it can. Anybody can interpret anything in all kinds of ways. That doesn't mean that's what's happening. Narcissists and borderlines constantly misinterpret everything everybody does. There's nothing new about that. So I'm supposed to constantly walk on eggshells? You know me, I'm not going to do that. She says, what you are saying could be interpreted that way. As I said before, she says, both the codependent and the person with BPD are likely abuse victims. As I also say in every single one of my videos. She goes on to say, I have watched more of your videos and I see that you do delve in that. Then why are you not giving me credit? Why are you condescending and talking down to me as if I don't know that? And more importantly, how is it that you don't know that I myself haven't experienced that? How is it you don't know that I myself was a victim of neglect and abuse, severe neglect and abuse as a kid? Why are you projecting onto me as though I don't have, I'm just some guy who came out of nowhere who knows nothing about this experience? You haven't obviously watched my channel enough to know that the whole point of this channel was I came out of one of these extremely abusive relationships. I know what it's like. I know what you're going through. So she goes, and then now she's going to be condescending. And again, condescension is abuse. That's why I don't condescend to any of you. It's abusive. If I treat you like you don't know any better, I'm treating you like a helpless little child. And you're not. You're an adult. And I'm treating you like an adult. I won't condescend to you. Some of you want me to condescend to you. Some of you want me to treat you like a helpless little infant. I'm not going to do it. I have more respect for you than that. She says, now she's going to condescend to me. I'm glad that you are in the healing process or have healed, but you do come off as abusive at times. So what? Coming off as abusive is not the same as being abusive. And she says, maybe it's your version of tough love. My response to that was, have you done the 4 things yet? Here's my prediction. I don't know her. I only know what little interaction I've had with her. As I said, I do believe, and here's me being a little condescending, I do believe that her desires are sincere. I don't think she's conscious of her unconscious, unresolved issues, which she's projecting onto me. As I said, she's not owning her own feelings, her own responses. She's not telling me how she feels about herself, about what I say. She is taking the responsibility to protect mythical other people. She herself is not bothered by anything I'm saying, but she's going to, like Superwoman, come down and protect those she thinks might be abused or feel abused by what I say. Again, take no responsibility for herself. It's a very codependent thing to do. My prediction is that she's been in, my guess is that she's been in therapy. And this is why, and here's the good thing about the good discussion point about this. The 4 things that I recommend, let me be clear. I am very categorical and, as some people have pointed out, dogmatic about this. And it's okay to be dogmatic, and I acknowledge that I'm being dogmatic. I am saying to you, based on my personal experience and on my observation, I have never seen anybody who has been in one of these cluster B abusive relationships. I have never seen anybody be in any one of these relationships for any significant amount of time completely heal from them if they only do therapy. Therapy is really good at one thing. It's very good at giving you access to your unconscious. But knowing what's going on in your unconscious and knowing how you've been programmed does not give you the ability to change, because your emotional and your mental neurology will not change simply because you have an intellectual awareness of what you went through. And people say this to me all the time as though it's some kind of, they want me to acknowledge it as having accomplished something. They'll say, I know that this comes from my childhood, while they then want me to co-sign their continuous, inability to go no contact, or unwillingness to go no contact, or unwillingness to do the 12 steps. The fact that you know that means nothing unless you're able to act on it. So actions, your actions is what changes your neurology, not your intellectual awarenesses, not even your emotional. Having emotions and crying is definitely part of it, but that in and of itself won't change the neurology. If having the emotions, crying and being aware of it, then you follow that up with a contrary action, going no contact, doing a 4th step, those things will then shift the neurology, which then will shift your behavior and your awarenesses, and you will heal. So my prediction is that this person has been in therapy, and therapy tends to create victims as well, because as I saw in the live stream yesterday, as I was signing off, I saw somebody leave a comment this person had said, I was pointing out some of their, I don't remember what I was pointing out. I was pointing out something in them, and they said, that is a defense mechanism. It's an intellectualization. Now, I assumed that person saw the word intellectualization the way I do. If somebody were to say to me, Mike, you're really in your intellect right now, I would know that to mean that I was in a defense mode, and I was not acknowledging my vulnerable feelings, my fear, my anger, my sadness, and that I was intellectualizing. I was trying to avoid by pushing my feelings away with my intellectualizations. And people who are intellectualizing are always abusive. Always. So when I saw this person say this was a defense mechanism of my intellectualization, I thought they were acknowledging that they were in a state of dysfunction and that they were pushing their feelings away in a destructive, self-destructive way. And I went on to say something about that's not a good thing, assuming that they knew that. And the person, as I was signing off, I saw them write, Nobody's ever told me that being having an intellectualization defense mechanism was a bad thing. I found that to be shocking. But I've never seen anybody who has gone through any one of these relationships who only goes to therapy. I've never seen any one of those people fully, completely recover. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I've never seen it. But I can tell you, every person that I have seen who has done the 4 things that I lay out in this channel, every single person who has done the 4 things with everything that they have, I see them recover. I see them heal. And if I haven't seen them long enough, I've seen them on the path. They can stop at any point in time and, backslide and all that. All that stuff is still, it's not an instant healing that never goes away. You got to work at it for the rest of your life. So based on what I've seen here, and it's just a superficial external judgment, my feeling is this person has not worked the steps and has been in therapy and has had some awareness and some healing, but there's, the thing about therapy is it does keep people victimized if that's all that they do. As I said, the guy who thought being, somebody pointed out to him, this is an intellectualization, this is a defense mechanism. Some therapist pointed out to him, but didn't go take it to the next step and say, and that's not helpful for you. That's actually your dysfunctional defense against healing, is staying in your head. The therapist did that person a disservice if they did not explain that to them. So for them to think that having an intellectual defensive reaction is a good thing shows their complete lack of awareness of what they need to do to change, and that's not their fault. They haven't been educated. But I'm doing my best to educate you as best I can. And again, if I hand you the antibiotics and you choose not to take them, which is an action, I can't have any sympathy for you. I won't condescend to you to such a degree and say, yeah, other people can take the medication, but you're different. You're too weak. You can't do it. I'm not going to condescend to you. You want me to do that. That would make you feel better in the moment, but it's not going to help you, and I'm not going to do it. All right, so did I say everything I wanted to say about that? I talked about the other person. Okay, I talked about some other things. So I don't think there's anything else. Here's one here. So somebody says, one thing I struggle with mine, meaning the borderline X, is that at times I have huge resentments for the pain she caused me. I think we have to forgive, let go, set boundaries, move on. I completely agree. The question is, how do you do that? So I only know one way to do what this person said, and that is to work the 4th step of the 12 steps, which is all about resentments. And again, when you do the 4th step, you will have to take responsibility for your resentments. Forgiving somebody, people say this all the time. I forgive you, but I will never forget. Well, then you're not forgiving. Because if you truly forgive, you will forget. If you truly forgive, it means you've taken full responsibility for your part in it, which could be as simple as wanting somebody to love you. Even though that's a very reasonable thing to want, your part in it is wanting somebody to love you, and they didn't. And you can't accept that. That's your part. That's your responsibility. And unless you've done the 4th step, you won't know the healing that it can bring. So struggling, and at times I have huge resentments. Let me correct you on that. At times you are aware of your resentments, but your resentments are with you 100% of the time in your unconscious. And they come out in all kinds of projections and all kinds of dysfunctional ways that you're not aware of. But those resentments don't just pop up. They're always there. Again, that's why they need to be dealt with. And then they can be gone forever. And once you've resolved a resentment, it never comes back. I have no resentment towards my borderline ex. I have no anger. I have no pain. I have no shame. I have no guilt. I have no remorse. I have no rumination. And that was mainly because I did step number 4 with my sponsor, and then did a 5th step, and then, did the rest of it. So if you want what I have, you can do what I do. In my experience, I can say for myself, if I had not done all 4 things consistently, I wouldn't have healed. I'd still be back in it. I'm not where I am because of anything special about me. I'm not, there's really, the only thing that I may have that might be special is I have the ability at times to take actions in ways that are incredibly difficult. Outside of that, there is nothing about me that's unusual. I'm no different than you. And if I can do it, you can do it. So that means if you're not doing it, it means you're choosing not to do it. If you don't know that they're there, then you can't make that choice. But when I say to you, here they are, here are the 4 things. And if you choose not to do them, you're responsible for that. And then I have no sympathy for you. But it's not about being perfect. When I point out to you that you're not a victim, the main thing that happens is people think I'm saying they're not perfect. They feel it's an attack on them. If I say to you, you suffer from this thing called codependence, which is out of your choice. You didn't choose to become a codependent. You didn't choose to be born in an abusive, neglecting household. You didn't choose to be programmed that way. That's not your fault. But if I say to you, you have this, your response, I am not a codependent. I already know that you are programmed to be perfect, and anything that you see as an accusation against your perfection is an attack on your essence. And it's not. So, what else? Nothing else? I don't see anything else I want to talk about. Let's see what you guys, if you guys have any questions, I'll answer them. Oh, nobody there. Nope, that's it. We got 13 people watching. All right, no questions. So then that's it then, guys. You've got the 4 things. You know what to do. I wish everybody a happy new year, and let's make a New Year's resolution together that going forward in this year we will be less codependent than we were last year. We will take more control over our reality, and we can choose how we want to live. I wish that for you as well as for myself. I wish you all the best. Happy New Year. I'll see you guys when I see you.